They're not telling President Mubarak to go immediately. He will hang on for as long as he can. Jackie Rowland, Al Jazeera, Cairo.
Let's get some other news now. And wildfires have destroyed dozens of homes in Western Australia. More homes are being threatened on the outskirts of Perth. It's the latest in a series of disasters to hit the country after widespread floods and a powerful cyclone. Tunisia's interior minister has suspended all activities of the country's former ruling party. That includes all meetings of the Democratic Constitutional Rally, known as the RCD, and all party offices or meeting places it owns have been ordered to close. Meanwhile, one man has died after being struck by a tear gas canister during a protest in the town of Kabylie. Locals are angry over the nomination of a new regional governor. And in the town of Kef, crowds burnt a police station after officers allegedly shot and killed 2 demonstrators. State media says the clashes erupted after a policeman hit a woman during a protest. Security officials are concerned that recent violence is being organised by those close to deposed President Ben Ali in order to undermine the interim government. Al Jazeera's Nazneen Moshiri has been following events from the capital, Tunis.
This is an extraordinary turnaround for a party that has dominated so long here, not only under Ben Ali, but also previously as well. The Interior Minister has not only banned all political activities of his party, but also banned members from gathering too. This has to still go through the courts. He's going to go ahead with an official request to dissolve the party itself. He's done this, he says, for security reasons, also as a response because people here are blaming members of the RCD for the violence that is occurring, especially in the south of the country. Also in the north, we've seen clashes between the police and protesters. 3 people have died in those clashes, and violence still very much continuing here in Tunisia.
The Cambodian government says heavy shelling by the Thai army has caused part of an 11th century temple to collapse. The 2 sides have been exchanging fire across their disputed border for 4 days now. Both countries lay claim to the area surrounding the temple. In Myanmar, the party of the pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi is expected to recommend that sanctions continue to be implemented against the country. A party official of the disbanded National League for Democracy said that sanctions affect the government and its allies more than the general population. Those sanctions have been in place for years to force the former military government to give up its power. 2 Americans have pleaded not guilty to espionage charges in an Iranian court. They were detained in 2009 along the Iraqi border. The Americans say they were hiking, and if they strayed into Iranian territory, they did so accidentally. A 3rd American was arrested and later freed on bail. She was also summoned to court, but did not appear. Protests against Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi turned violent on Sunday. Demonstrators scuffled with police as they tried to break the security barrier around the Italian leader's residence. Thousands of protesters had converged on Milan to call for Berlusconi's resignation. He's under investigation on suspicion of having sex with a 17-year-old girl. Berlusconi has denied any wrongdoing. Now, the final tally in South Sudan's referendum is due to be announced in the next few hours. Preliminary results showed a 99.5% vote for independence from the north, but there has already been a backlash. A mutiny by Sudanese troops refusing to leave the south has spread through several towns. At least 50 people have been killed in the past 4 days. Harry Matassa reports from Juba in southern Sudan on the challenges facing the new country.
People in southern Sudan prepare to celebrate independence from the north. Final results from last month's referendum will be announced Monday, making it official the region will become the world's newest nation. Expectations from people who've lived through decades of conflict are high.
We just wish good success. Everybody should get a job opportunity.
Government is sure to reduce all the price of the commodities. That brought corruption in the country. When someone have no money, even though you have 100 pounds, you can't buy something in the market.
The comprehensive peace agreement signed in 2005 ends on the 9th of July. The South will then officially become an independent country.
People here hope independence will bring new beginnings and a more developed southern Sudan. But they also know the road ahead will not be easy.
According to the United Nations, more than half the population lives on less than $1 a day. There is high unemployment, and many don't have access to clean running water. Much of the infrastructure was destroyed during the Civil War. It's a nation starting from scratch.
The government is well aware of the difficulties that we will face as a new country, It is going to be very, very, very challenging to try to rebuild the economy that has not been existing actually. 50 years without anything in the south.
Another concern is the influx of people returning to the region, stretching already limited resources. Clashes between defectors from the Sudan People's Liberation Army and rebel groups like the Lord's Resistance Army have raised security concerns. The South needs help from the international community to address its most pressing needs. Officials also need to attract foreign direct investment. Celebrations have started, but the challenges of building a new country are enormous. Harun Mutasa, Al Jazeera, Juba, Southern Sudan.
2 weeks of protests in Egypt have driven some 160,000 tourists from the country, with many businesses shut for days. As one of our correspondents in Cairo reports now, ordinary Egyptians are starting to feel the pinch.
Minutes away from the military lockdown near Liberation Square, downtown Cairo is bustling. Banks open for the first time in a week, petrol stations stocked. But everyone here knows it's still not business as usual. Ahmad Arafah has sold newspapers at this very spot for 40 years. Like many we spoke to here, he believes in the principles and aims of this uprising, but is worried about what could happen next.
As an Egyptian, I think what happened was good or looked positive. But if it turns into chaos, that's not good, because my work will completely stop, as people will stop going out onto the street.
People outside the square are questioning whether they now have more to lose than gain.
There have been positive changes made in the country, so there's no need for people to stay in Liberation Square. I can't see how we can benefit anymore. People's businesses have stopped. There are a lot of poor Egyptians in this country who can't afford to stay home from work for more than a week.
But not everyone is so sure it's time for the protests to end. In this popular downtown bookshop, we heard mixed views.
The government has to do more, and the more they do, the more people will leave the square. No way to let them just go home. They will not go home, because I believe they have a cause, and the cause, maybe a lot of it has been accomplished, but it's not yet enough.
If it's going to have a positive impact, yes, I support this. But I'm really scared of the consequences, because we're not used to this type of revolution.
Statements by the Egyptian president and vice president have at their core a message to the people that an end to the Mubarak presidency would cause chaos in Egypt. As the protests continue, the demonstrators will have their work cut out for them if they're to keep the momentum going and stop the fear of change creeping back into Egyptian society.
Now, you may remember that Cairo's main museum was broken into during the protests. The man in charge of antiquities has now confirmed that none of the mummies there were affected. Zahi Hawass had earlier been quoted as saying 2 of them had been damaged. He added it was business as usual at the museum on Sunday, although 70 exhibits will need restoration. Hawass was made a cabinet minister last week. Now, before we go, a quick reminder, you can keep up to date with all the news on our website. There it is on your screen. The address, of course, aljazeera.net/English. That's aljazeera.net/English. We'll be back in half an hour with the latest on the situation in Egypt. Stay with us now for Egypt Burning.
January 2011. History unfolding.
And now things are getting worse by the moment.
This film tells the story of 5 days when the people of Egypt broke through a barrier of fear they had known for a generation. and rose in revolt against their president.
Police are knocking on our door. The police is on their way up to our office. I will stay on the air if I can until the police come. We're going to keep these images for you guys live until we are actually forced off the air, either by the police or if our signal is somehow interrupted.
Small networks of activists were gearing up for mass action. They'd been agitating against President Mubarak's autocratic rule for years, but they never had attracted mass support